Yeah, hey, drop.
Prime Coverage Sports Network. Real coverage, real conversation.
It is the Lockdown Coverage Podcast coming to you live on this Tuesday evening, pre-evening, whatever it is you want to call it. We are coming to you live on this Tuesday. Mike Tipton hanging out with Sean Davich. Did I get that correct?
David, for future reference. But you are not the first and you won't be the last, so don't worry about it.
Hey, trust, there's been plenty I had to start going by Mike because people were calling me Michelle for whatever reason. Like it's one of those weird random things that happens. Mm-hmm. Our dude, Freddie Henderson, our fearless leader, Freddie Henderson, tuning in saying, "What's up, guys? What's up, Freddie? Hope that you are having yourself a fantastic day so far, my friend." Sean, the happiest day and the saddest day all in one. The big game happened. And it had to be one of the most boring football games we ever had to suffer through as the Seattle Seahawks absolutely dominated the New England Patriots 29-13. What was your takeaway from that game, my friend?
Well, first, let me say this. Wasn't the last time Seattle won a Super Bowl kind of a boring game then, too? Seattle ended up beating Denver, I believe, 43-8 on that day 13 years ago. So maybe that's just how it is. Seattle fans don't care, though. That's their second world championship. I think the biggest factor was what we talked about last week. Seattle was dominant in the trenches. Drake May didn't look comfortable all game long, and New England's offense didn't get going until it was well too late in the fourth quarter. And by that time, they were down 19-0 in the game. Was too far out of reach.
And that's the craziest thing about it is I thought it was going to be – I think we all kind of figured it was going to be a defense-dominated game. But to see just how – ugly it became so early on for the New England Patriots where they could not move the ball at all for 3 quarters. I mean, they had 1 first down in 2 quarters in the second and the third quarter. And then finally in the fourth quarter in garbage time, like we were talking about, they were able to put some drives together and make it respectable. I was yay close to being like, I'm putting some money that it's going to wind up being a shutout. Thank God I didn't. But I think as soon as I put it in the group chat too, I think that's whenever they scored a touchdown. I was like, I'm rooting for a shutout now. That's the only.
I think we all were.
What was that?
I said I think we all were.
Yeah,
it was close. It was mighty close.
It really was. Freddie agreeing with us, saying it was the most boring Super Bowl.
And he's correct.
I mean, again, like I feel like the last 2 have been pretty boring, right? Like last year with Kansas City just getting dominated by Philadelphia. At least, there was a little bit of a fight there, like a small, tiny bit of a fight. This game was just over from the get. And, Philadelphia was scoring touchdowns versus Seattle just doing nothing but kicking field goals. And Jason Myers, to me, got robbed of the MVP.
Well, he was certainly the reason Seattle was able to win. I mean, 17 points for a kicker in a Super Bowl game, never been done before, and he was really the reason. So, but they gave it to Walker because he kept the offense moving in the first half when Sam Darnold wasn't as effective as he could have been. And we can give credit to New England's defense there. They played well. They just couldn't get anything from their offense.
Andrew Scheid saying, if you love defense, it was for you. I mean, even the people that love defense had to have watched that game and been like, Jesus, man, give me something. Just a little bit of something.
I mean – defense wins you championships like we talked about before, but offense is what gets you there. And Seattle was the most complete team in the league this year. You could see it. Even when their offense wasn't as sharp as it could have been in the Super Bowl, they were still the better team and therefore deserved to win.
Okay, so we spoke about that. Defense wins championships. Congratulations are in order to the Seattle Seahawks on winning the championship. Always still weird for me to say Seattle Seahawks winning a championship. The New England Patriots, though, to me, I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions about this team moving forward, right? It felt like they caught lightning in a bottle here. I don't know if you agree with me on this or not, Sean, but an easy schedule.
Yep.
Very easy road in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. And then you see what happens whenever you play a high-caliber team that's just well-rounded all the way around. Out of these 2 teams, who do you think, like obviously getting to the Super Bowl, I think is an impossibility. Back-to-back Super Bowls Doesn't happen very often. But out of these two teams, who do you think is more poised for a brighter future going forward?
Seattle does to me. With all due respect to Mike Vrabel and what he's got going with New England, they've got a good thing going, but Seattle just seems to have everything in place. Sam Darnold, he's found a home. He's found a home in the NFL. Their defense is going to be good for years to come. And Jigba, I think he's just getting started. They have a very good running game. And I think we need to give another shout out to Kenneth Walker, because once Charbonnet went down, Kenneth Walker really stepped up in these playoffs. Maybe that's another reason he got MVP honors.
Yeah, I mean, most teams have that two-headed threat in the backfield at running back, and Kenneth Walker, I believe, kind of lived up to the expectations. It felt like the last couple of years, everyone was expecting Kenneth Walker to have like that breakout season, and it never really came through fruition. Like, he would have games here and there where you'd be like, man, this dude, like, he was showing us that he's got talent, but he never really put it all together for a full season. And the last two games, with the team having to, put the team on his back, he was able to do what I think a lot of people were expecting him to be able to do. Again, great that he won the MVP. Obviously, you can't give the Super Bowl MVP to a kicker. I could only imagine what would be all over the other, sports stations if the kicker got the MVP, like what that would be like on the ticker at the bottom. But man, Jason Myers, that should have been your guy. Like, that 100% should have been the guy, but whatever. I'm just some dude. What do I know about anything in the world of sports?
He outscored the New England Patriots alone, so I think part of that argument is justified. And you also can't give an MVP to an entire defense, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
But I think they were the one of the biggest factors in the game too, aside from what Myers did.
Kenny telling us that he is a Steelers fan. He's used to these types of game. You've seen it as the Steelers play against the Ravens. Again, like, I love a defensive game. I genuinely do. But that game was just garbage juice, man. Like, it was not fun to watch. No aspect of it was fun to watch. It was clear to see Seattle's defense was clearly better than New England's defense was. New England, the bend but don't break, was fun to see for a little bit, but you knew that they weren't going to be able to make a stop when they needed to make a stop.
No, and another reason I didn't think they were going to be able to keep up in the game, their inefficiencies in the red zone. You mentioned the early schedule. They played pretty much everybody at the right time. Their defense was very good in the first couple rounds. And then they caught a huge break when Bo Nix got hurt late in Denver's divisional win over Buffalo. And then, they did just enough in the AFC Championship game in snowy Denver. So they had pretty much everything handed to them all year long. They earned a lot of things. They did well, but they were nowhere near as deserving as Seattle did. And that was pretty much reflected in how the game went and how the score came out.
Andrew Scheid saying that he almost fell asleep and that the MVP did almost go to the kicker. Okay, so I feel like we've given it enough light, right? Like it was such a boring Super Bowl. Congratulations to the two teams that made it. Congratulations to the teams that you can say had a good season. But let's recap now the season as a whole, right? Let's take Seattle and New England out of it, because clearly they had amazing seasons. You don't make it to the Super Bowl without being a really damn good team. Out of the teams that are remaining, what teams surprised you the most?
As far as positive or negative?
Let's go positive first. We'll go negative later.
Well, the Rams are going to be good for years to come. Stafford already said he'll be back next year, and he's got some amazing talent at wideout. Nakua reminds me a lot of Justin Jefferson, the way he pulls down footballs. I think the Giants have a bright future. They made the best coaching hire of the offseason by far. The Raiders will have to wait and see. They got a good guy in Clint Kubiak, who admitted he was taking the job even before the game ended. Detroit, should we go to the negative side, or do we have a
go ahead? Give me your negative.
I think the Detroit Lions, they took a few steps backward this year. Everybody expected them to be on top of the NFC North again. But then let's go back to the positive side. Their division rival, the Bears. Caleb Williams really stepped up his game this year. For a franchise that's been historically known for defense and not ever having a 4,000-yard passer offensively, Caleb Williams did a lot of things right this year. I think the Bears are going to be a threat for years to come if they continue to play like this, they've got a great coaching staff in place.
Okay.
Who surprised? What about you? Who surprised you this year?
So my biggest surprise on the positive side is going to be the Denver Broncos, right? Like I would have loved to have seen a healthy Bo Nix against that New England Patriots team in that snowy weather. And I feel like Denver could have found a way to maybe make it to a Super Bowl. And I think that would have been fun, right? Like that might have been a little more fun having something like that. I got to agree with you. The Chicago Bears, to me, I thought they'd be a playoff team. I really loved what they did in the offseason, addressing the offensive line, what they did in the draft. Like the Bears, I think getting Ben Johnson, which is a huge get for them, getting Ben Johnson. The Bears making it to the playoffs, getting themselves a playoff win as well. That, to me, shows a lot of upside for the Chicago Bears. If you're a Bears fan right now, you've got to be happy, just like Andrew's saying here. It's all Bears, baby, right? Like that's the one that you got to be surprised about. But
they ran into a really good Rams team in the playoffs. But everything like this, building block for years to come.
Oh, yeah.
One playoff win and a closely competitive game in the divisional round.
Yep. The one that I think is the most surprising to me would have to be the San Francisco 49ers, right? Like if that team had only won 4 games or something like that, we could look at it and say, oh, yeah, that they were injured all season long. But going into the last week of the season, they were yay close to getting the number 1 overall seed, right? Like it was insane to think about that. Whenever Brock Purdy goes down and you give the reins over to Mac Jones and you sit there and say to yourself, oh, they're done. Like they've got to be done. And Mac Jones just keeps the ship going forward, doing what they do, winning games somehow, some way. You've got to tip your cap a little bit to the San Francisco 49ers. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s as a Dallas Cowboys fan. I hate the words that are coming out of my mouth right now, giving any type of love to the San Francisco 49ers. But I feel like you kind of got to give it to them, right? Like, no, if they had given up, all of us would have been like, I get it.
Well, I see what you did there. All those NFC championship meetings they had, the late 80s, early 90s, Troy Aikman versus Steve Young. That was good. That made for good TV. And, Dallas owned it most of the time, aside from the 94 game. But going back to what you said about this year's 49ers team, I think that's a testament to not only Brock Purdy and the way he gets it done. Mac Jones filled in well for him when Purdy had that toe injury. And Kyle Shanahan, I've said it before, he may be coaching royalty, but he's also one of the best in the business. With that many injuries and the health besetting the team this year, how they kept it together, and like you said, being in contention for the top seed going into the final game of the year, that's a testament enough. And, if they're fully healthy again next year, we might see the 49ers on top of the NFC again.
And that's the wild thing whenever you think about this, right? Like, you look at what the NFC West had this season. Just all 3 of those teams in the NFC West that went to the playoffs, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers, fighting each other down to the last couple of weeks of the season on who's going to win the division, who's going to get the bye week, and ultimately, have all the games at home.
Right.
All 3 of those teams, I think if you would have gone into the home stadium of all 3 of those teams, you would have been terrified, right? Like you instantly feel like you're going to lose that game. And now they can run it back because Seattle's going to come back. They're saving money on Sam Darnold. We spoke about that contract last week. Like, you have Sam Darnold right now at a bargain. You have money that you can spend in free agency. You have some pretty decent draft picks out there as well. Then you look at the Rams. Again, they have 2 first-round draft picks this year. They're one of the best teams. I still think they were the best team in the NFL this year. They ran into a buzzsaw at the wrong time, but I still feel like the Rams were the best team in the NFL this year. And then you look at the San Francisco 49ers. If they're healthy, that's the huge caveat. This team won 11, 12 games. If they were healthy, what could they have done, right? Like, and they're just going to run it back the entire time. It's going to be fun to watch. We know one thing, though, going into next season, the Arizona Cardinals aren't going to be a team that we care about at all. They're going to be dominated in that division.
Well, maybe it'll be building blocks for, their new coach that they brought on. They're going to be competing in the new toughest division in the NFL. It'll be a tough few years for Arizona, but maybe they'll jump back into contention before we know it. Probably not within the next year or two, though. Seattle, the Rams, like you said, and the Niners, they're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon with what they got going for them.
So you mentioned a couple of teams that you were disappointed by, right? Like the Lions, the Vikings. What other teams were you disappointed by? Because I feel like the Lions and the Vikings had some level of expectation, although I think the Vikings, maybe you as a Vikings fan, you can attest to this. Were the expectations that high for J.J. McCarthy?
They were. The turmoil kind of came out over the last few weeks once general manager Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was fired. There were more conflicts within the organization than I thought. Coach actually kind of wanted Darnold to stay around. He saw the upside in him. McCarthy, I think, may have been rushed into the game too fast. Don't get me wrong, he did some good things this year. I was actually at the game in Detroit where they pulled the upset in early November. I thought maybe that was where they were going to turn the whole thing around and where McCarthy was going to, ascend near the top of the league. But then a 5-game losing streak followed that. They fell out of playoff contention. Now the team's talking about bringing in a veteran quarterback, which they should do. That's going to put the necessary chip on J.J. McCarthy's shoulders if he wants to start for the team again. But if they bring in Kirk Cousins, I'm not so sure they should do that because he was a starter here, obviously, for the better part of 5-6 years, and he may think he still has some starting football left in him. I'm not sure he'd come here to be a backup, especially with how much money he's made in his career. So yeah, the Vikings were a big disappointment to me. Kind of dead no man's land now, and with their 9-8 record, it was still good enough for third place in the North, but also the lowest draft pick of any non-playoff team. So unfortunately, they still have some needs they need to address, and being in that middle of the pack for the draft is not exactly the most favorable spot. And now they have to start over, with a general manager who they said they're not going to hire until after the draft. That's kind of a risky move. So I guess we'll see what happens, but I think the Vikings might be in trouble.
I can hear the pain in your voice. You're like, this team.
I'm a longtime fan. I know what I'm talking about with this team.
This team is disappointing me left and right. I'm hurting for you. I'm not even a Vikings fan. I'm over here hurting for you. But I can relate to that, right? Because as a Dallas Cowboys fan, they're never good enough to win the Super Bowl. At least I don't ever think they are. And then they're not bad enough to be a team that gets, a top 5 draft pick. It's always that weird purgatory 10 to 20 where nobody wants to really draft
exactly them. No man's land in the draft order.
Yeah, and that's always a crapshoot, right? Like obviously every draft pick is a crapshoot, but it's whatever it is. Like it's not sexy. It's just your normal draft pick. You look at both the Cowboys draft picks right now. It's 11 and 20. Like there's oh my goodness, I'm so happy we have a top 11 pick. Like no one has ever said that in the history of sports. But the Minnesota Vikings to me are an interesting team. And I'm glad that you had mentioned the thought of like, we need to bring in a veteran quarterback here to kind of help J.J. McCarthy along. I was surprised that they moved on from both Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones so quick. And we're just going to give the whole, the keys to the Lamborghini to J.J. McCarthy. Mm-hmm. And you kind of saw what happened, right? Like he wasn't ready for the NFL this year. You'd figure he kind of could be, but with the weapons that they have in Minnesota, offensively, they should have been pretty damn good, right? Like, I feel like I said it at the beginning of the season, they're one of those teams that are quarterback proof. Like, it could be me and you back there. Oh, okay, let's throw it to Justin Jefferson. If you get anywhere near Justin Jefferson, he's going to come down with that ball. So, like, they should have been quarterback proof, but they proved to us that they're not. And I wonder if this puts a little bit of a tarnish on Kevin O'Connell, who's known as the quarterback guru, quarterback whisperer, because he's also credited with helping out Sam Darnold becoming this guy. So was it just Sam Darnold's much better than we thought he was? Do we give Sam Darnold now more credit than what we gave him whenever he was in Minnesota? Or is it just J.J. McCarthy might not be as good as we thought he was?
Maybe a little bit of both. Sam Darnold refined a lot of parts of his game while he was here in Minnesota. You mentioned the tremendous supporting cast he had. Very good running game last year when he was here. The 2 wideouts he could throw to anytime when they needed bailing out. The number of touchdowns he threw last year is still, I think, second or third in club history, which is saying a lot. And winning 14 games as a runner-up in a division is as crazy a stat as I've ever seen. But Kwesi hasn't stopped taking heat even since he was fired. And, for letting Darnold go, 1 year later he wins the Super Bowl and everybody's just eating their hearts out here.
That's got to be, again, the toughest thing, at least with Detroit. When they traded Matt Stafford, you knew that was a Super Bowl caliber team right off the bat. Nobody would have thought. And again, unless you were the most diehard Seattle Seahawks fan, nobody would have thought that Seattle would be the team that wins the Super Bowl this year, or the big game. Again, we can't call it the Super Bowl. It's the big game. They won the big game this year. Man, but I want to stick in that division, because I think I agree with you here that the biggest disappointment to me has to be the Detroit Lions. All the expectation in the world on them, right? Just a couple of years ago, they were in the NFC Championship game. They lose against the San Francisco 49ers. What could have been, right? Like, maybe Dan Campbell doesn't go for it on fourth down. He kicks a couple of field goals. We're talking about a completely different Super Bowl matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs. But it just feels like that might have been the plateau for them. And it feels like the window is starting to not just, slowly shut, but slam shut on them. And that's going to be a huge disappointment to a fan base that I think was ready to just be ready to feel a sort of elation that they've never been able to feel before.
I mean, do you now think they're maybe just going to be good enough to contend every year, but maybe never reach the NFC Championship again, at least while Dan Campbell's still coach?
I think that's the purgatory that they're going to wind up being stuck in, right? I think they're going to be one of those teams that we look back at in NFL history with a lot of what if. And I feel like that's also going to be the Buffalo Bills right now. This was the easiest season for the Buffalo Bills to win a Super Bowl. Maybe I need to put them as the biggest disappointment, right? This was the easiest route for a team to win a Super Bowl. And you go into the playoffs, you take a huge dump on the bed, because I can't say the other word. You take a huge dump on the bed, and it's just, man, like, between those two teams, the level of expectation that was there for those two teams, you have to look at and say, okay, that was the biggest disappointment in the NFL. Sure, you could bring up Kansas City as a huge disappointment. Brother, they made 4 straight Super Bowl? They were in the Super Bowl all the time. They deserve a little bit of a break. You can say Philadelphia might have been disappointing because they didn't have a good season. They somehow limped into the playoffs, the beneficiary of having a terrible division, because when the second place team in your division is the Dallas Cowboys, you have a terrible division. But you have to look at Detroit and you have to look at Buffalo and think to yourselves, that window's got to be done. And hell, maybe I'm going way too much now. Let's throw Baltimore in there. Baltimore was a huge disappointment.
Well, part of their problem this year was obviously their bad start, and then, the health of Lamar Jackson. I'm not so sure they should have moved on from Harbaugh, to be honest with you. Maybe the time was right for a change. Maybe they just wanted to start over. Tomlin at least left in Pittsburgh on his own accord, and now they're talking about bringing McCarthy back, bringing Aaron Rodgers back now that McCarthy's taken over. Those two won a Super Bowl together, obviously, a number of years back. But with Detroit, Dan Campbell, I think his some might call it gutsy play calling. I call it very risky play calling. It came back to bite Detroit a lot this year. And in the Detroit game that I attended earlier this year that I talked about, that all that game long there, all those questionable play calls that they had on offense was a big reason why the Vikings were able to steal a win there this year. And it wasn't just that game. All year long, they had some questionable play calls. And, their second matchup with the Vikings around Christmas time, that was as bad as it gets. I've never seen a Detroit Lions offense that, off guard since the dare I say, the Matt Millen days.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that harsh? Matt Millen screwed up that franchise over a 20-year period, and they looked about as lost that day as I remember seeing them.
Invoking the spirit of Matt Millen to come on here and make everything bad, just like he did in Detroit. Ooh, that's a tough one for Detroit Lions fans to have to relive, bringing that back up.
At least for that game.
Yeah,
because the Vikings had like 50 yards that whole game and still beat them by 13 points.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I love like stats like that. It's like, you won't believe these stats. I see them on TikTok every now and then. I want to say it was like the Houston Texans wind up beating, I can't remember what the team was, but like they gave up 6 sacks in the game and had given up like 400 more yards than what they gained and somehow still won the game. Like, I love those weird stats like that in NFL history.
It's just crazy. I've seen so many games like that.
Yeah, no, you don't get them. Renegade Rundown 24 saying, no. Once again, Steelers fan, doesn't want to have the Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers run back here. You know how like you'll see a band that broke up in their prime and then they get back together and then they start doing T-Mobile commercials during the Super Bowl like the Backstreet Boys did, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, man, that's sad. Like the what if could have happened here. What if Aaron Rodgers hadn't got Mike McCarthy fired in Green Bay the first go around? Maybe they could have done something together, a little more magic. It's not going to happen now. And I feel so bad for Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Normally, I love watching the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base just suffer. And right now, like, I feel bad for them. And for me to get that level of like concern for my Pittsburgh Steeler brethren is weird. I'm not used to this, but oh man, like let's talk about that a little bit, Sean. Aaron Rodgers saying that he's leaning on coming back because Mike McCarthy is there. Another season of Aaron Rodgers on the fence. What's he going to do? Which way is he going to go? Maybe he and I are going to do ayahuasca together in Arizona. Who knows? What are your thoughts on the whole drama going on in Pittsburgh right now?
Well, sometimes I think Aaron Rodgers doesn't know when to quit, for one thing. He's kind of bounced around ever since his Packer days. I don't know if he's deluding himself, wanting to possibly reunite with Mike McCarthy. You mentioned the band analogy thing. They're it's like they're reuniting for maybe one more farewell show or something like that. Maybe that's the way I could see it as going. But those Green Bay teams had a lot of talent. I'm not sure this Pittsburgh team nearly has that much. And, they have a new coach. And I'm just not sure they're going to be able to replicate that over 1 year. Maybe that's what Rodgers wants just for old time's sake. But I don't know. I agree with you. I think Pittsburgh's kidding themselves. And the reason McCarthy was fired out of Green Bay was, questionable play calling. Other than the Super Bowl he won back in 2010, a lot of his tenure there was defined by not being able to get it done in clutch moments. I still remember the day he was fired. That was after a loss to the lowly Cardinals, I believe, halfway through 2018. And, but McCarthy's a good offensive mind. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know if this is going to be a great fit.
It feels weird. Just we'll leave it at that, man. Like this doesn't feel this isn't a Pittsburgh Steelers type of hire for a coach, because they normally bring in someone that is going to be there for a while. Mike McCarthy's track record, I don't know if you could say that guy's going to be there for a decade or more. It everything about this feels weird. It feels desperate. And they like ownership and the GM and like all the upper management must think they're closer than they actually are. But like we can all look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and say to ourselves, that team is not anywhere near where most people would think they need to be. And ownership has to look at them and be like, oh guys, we made it to the playoffs again. We were right there. Maybe a guy like Mike McCarthy to put a spark into the offense or something like that. It's just not going to happen.
Based on that, I'm wondering, did you have the same thought when Jerry Jones brought him on board back in 2020? Did he see the same kind of thing, just stars in his eye, just hiring a guy who's had a good track record as offensive coach? He didn't always get the best out of his offenses, and they had some talent.
I mean, and that's the thing that I think you can look at right now with the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like, you can say Mike McCarthy, whenever he was with the Dallas Cowboys, 2 out of 5 seasons, they led the NFL in offense.
Yep.
But the one thing that's a consistent there is Brian Schottenheimer was his offensive coordinator. Brian Schottenheimer gets the keys to the Lamborghini this year, and the Dallas Cowboys offense looks amazing again, right? Like a top 2 offense, number 1 in yards. I think, number 3 in scoring? Like they had a very good offensive season to the Dallas Cowboys. So now, again, it comes down to like who should get the credit on this stuff. Like Mike McCarthy, whenever he was hired with the Dallas Cowboys, to me it was a huge, huge disappointment. I thought it was just Jason Garrett 2.0, because you got to remember what the pantheon for the Dallas Cowboys were, right? You get Wade Phillips as your head coach. Then that goes into Jason Garrett, and then that goes into Mike McCarthy. And you're sitting here thinking to yourself, man, none of these dudes are really the guy that you would run through a rock wall for, right? None of these guys are like the Sean Payton kind of guys. None of these guys are, the Bill Belichick kind of guy. It just felt like Jerry Jones hired a dude that was going to say, yes, Jerry. Mike McCarthy did say, yes, Jerry. When Mike McCarthy struggled, Jerry said, see you later. And that was the end of the relationship with them because the revolving door of Cowboys coaches continues to go this way. I want to address
that's how it is. If you stand up to Jerry Jones, you're probably not going to have a job anymore. You have to do what he says. You're almost like his puppet.
Oh God, I hate that I love that team. I want to give a little bit of love to the Cricket Commish from the Chicago Clubhouse Network tuning into today's show. He's used to, at the half-hour mark, I have a sponsored segment. But this isn't the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton. No. This is the Lockdown Coverage Podcast on the Prime Coverage Sports Network. Myself, along with Sean Davich. Hey, look at that. Got it right this time.
There you go.
We are hanging out here talking about the NFL. We will be talking about NFL on this show all the time. So you got fantasy football questions. I did horribly this year. I'm probably not the one to ask for. I will divert that to everybody else. I had 4 teams this year, Sean. All 4 of my teams wind up being the first team out of the playoffs. Like you have the playoff settings, me on the outside looking in. I did win 2 consolation brackets, though, and that's where the real winners play, baby.
Now, are you in one of those? Were you in any of those leagues where they have like those unique punishments you read about every now and then, just like?
So,
or were there really no stakes?
I tried. I tried because I feel like you have to be punished if you're that bad, and it's a way to make sure you keep looking at your team, right? So last year, I guess the season after now, since we're already past this year, the 2 seasons ago, I had a vampire league, and I don't know if you know what a vampire league is.
No, I don't.
So it's a little weird. I hope you can stay with me here. If I need to repeat, please let me know. But it was to me, it sounded fun. The concept of it was fun. The people I had the league with, not fun at all. So maybe I run it back with a new group of friends. It made me realize I need new friends. But in the Vampire League, you have 10 teams. 9 teams draft. The 10th team only gets to pick up players off the waiver wire following the draft. Then when the season starts, that team has first dibs on the waiver all season long. If you lose to that team, they get to choose a player on your team to swap out with a player on their team. They're the vampire. They're sucking the life essence out of your team, right? So if the vampire goes on a good winning streak, they can go from having the worst team in the league to just being stacked. And that was something that wound up happening in my league. The vampire wound up beating a couple of people that didn't pay attention to their team. He gets he had Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes on his team. He had the top 3 wide receivers, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, DK Metcalf, and CeeDee Lamb, because these guys were not paying attention to their teams, and he was just poaching them, just poaching these guys off of them. So it's a great concept, but you really have to pay attention to your league. You really have to have guys that pay attention to their team as well.
Well, that's amazing. But maintaining 4 leagues, that's probably too much for me. I've only been in 1 really over the last 5-10 years, but I'm also the 3-time defending champ now in my league.
Oh, whoa. I got to send one of these wrestling belts to you then, since you're the champ. You're the one who's got to have the belts with you.
I guess I just pick the right players every time. Last year I had the leading everybody in the leading offensive category on my team. Burrow, quarterback, Chase, a receiver, running back Barkley, all on one team. That's kind of a cheat code.
That is. I was about to say, whoever lets you draft those 3 guys is insane.
But I'm in one of those ESPN leagues where it's a snake draft, so the order is always randomized. So, as a champion, I'm not allowed to pick last. That actually might be a favor if you're in one of those snake draft formats.
Yeah, there you go. I'm in a league with some of my friends from the mothership and from SiriusXM. This is a dynasty league that we've been in, and I am the embodiment of the Dallas Cowboys in this league. I will have a great season, make it to the playoffs, and lose in the first round, or I'm the team that's just right there again on the border, whether or not I'm going to make the playoffs. Never good enough to win it all, never bad enough to get the number 1 overall pick. So I'm just right there in purgatory. The Dallas Cowboys art form is now my life.
The Vikings are certainly relatable, at least this year. They're one of those franchises. They're never bad enough to just blow the whole thing up, and never, good enough to, contend every year.
The Crooked Commish brought up a good question going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If it's not Aaron Rodgers, because there's no guarantee that he's going to be the guy there.
No, that's true, actually.
What do they do? Because, again, like, you don't have a top pick to be able to go out and get someone like a Fernando Mendoza or anybody like that. And this quarterback draft that we're going to get into, and we can talk about that a little bit later on down the road once we get closer to the NFL draft.
Right.
It's not a quarterback-heavy draft. So it's not like you've got a ton of dudes you can pick through right now. And out in free agency, I think it's slim pickings in free agency as well.
Yeah, there are. So if they're not able to get, they may be targeting someone possibly for a potential backup, but they may be begging Rodgers to come back if it gets urgent for them.
God, do they even have any trade capital? Like, I'm trying to think about it here with the Pittsburgh Steelers because, again, like, you expect Baltimore to be better next year. You expect
it should be, even with the change of
Cincinnati to be a little better next year.
Cincinnati's going to be much better next year, at least if Burrow stays healthy.
So Pittsburgh, you gotta do something. Like the way this team is constructed right now, you were lucky to win the division and get into the playoffs. And obviously, you were exposed early on in the playoffs where you did not belong.
Well, no, the Texans just ate them up all game long in that first round.
Yeah. Okay, so, man, it's going to be interesting. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does. I feel like this is going to be another year of mediocrity. Mike McCarthy's more than likely going to get the most out of the offense because you have to remember they still do have some weapons on offense, right? Like you have DK Metcalf, which is a cheat code at a wide receiver. Kenneth Gainwell was awesome as a receiving running back and as a running back. You still have TJ Warren there, so you have the building blocks of a good system. I think they have the best tight end room in the NFL with Freiermuth and Washington. I know they have a third guy that I keep forgetting right now, but it's like, come on now. The backup is Malik Willis. I got to meet Malik Willis at the NFL draft in Vegas. The biggest calves I have ever seen on a human being. Like I was impressed by those calves.
Wow. Well, hasn't Malik Willis been in Green Bay for a while? Didn't just.
I know it sounds sacrilegious. I really felt like Pittsburgh should have kept Justin Fields. Like I feel like he would have been a better option for them. He was not bad there. He was serviceable. He's a good enough quarterback to do okay with decent weapons. And just anybody that goes to the Jets is going to be bad. We can all agree with that. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be the greatest quarterback of all time. You can be Patrick Mahomes. And if the Chiefs traded Patrick Mahomes to the Jets, Patrick Mahomes would look like me and you out there on the field. Like, it's just not going to be good. But
no.
It's, oh, man, like even Malik Willis, I don't know, has he done anything really to make you feel like this is the guy? Because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he drafted by Tennessee? So this would be his third team.
That's right. So, maybe they should bring Rodgers back, see what happens, get a newcomer to, learn under him, be an understudy. I'm sure Mike McCarthy wouldn't mind having Rodgers back, and I'm sure Rodgers, if he chose not to walk away, wouldn't mind playing for McCarthy for one more season, maybe help him develop an understudy.
They're going to have to find something in the draft or try to trade away some players to get a higher draft pick or something to try to go out there and get a decent quarterback.
Yep, but you mentioned all the position players they have on offense. They'd have a good thing set up for Rodgers or whoever's there.
Yeah. And again, like the offense should be better with Mike McCarthy because we've seen he's an offensive dude. Yep. And the offense with the Cowboys was good. Again, we can debate who's the one responsible for the offensive success with the Dallas Cowboys, but that's a different topic for another day that we can talk about another time because I don't want to talk about the Dallas Cowboys because they hurt my heart. They give me high blood pressure. I'm looking at the thing right behind me right now, and my blood is starting to boil with how much I hate that I love this team. I cannot quit this team. I wish I could. I can't. Like I think I'm so deep into it right now.
I know the feeling. It's how you were brought up as a Cowboys fan, weren't you?
I was 100%. Like
yep, and I was brought up the same way.
I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, right? Like my childhood, I was 6 years old the first time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl in the 90s. So I thought this was the way it was supposed to be all the time. 3 Super Bowls by the time I was like 11, right? Like, wow, this is the way it's supposed to be. No, au contraire, mon frere, right? Like, they have shown me what it's like to be a true fan, rooting for a team that just you left and right.
So in like the mid-'90s, when they haven't made an NFC championship since, sorry to remind you of that, it's like you missed out on all that. Once you became a true fan of them, that's when it kind of all stopped. Now, I started becoming a fan of football around the late 90s when Randy Moss was taking storm in the league. He, Carter, Robert Smith, Cunningham, Jeff George, Dante Culpepper. That's when football was fun for me. But then, Denny Green gets dismissed in the early 2000s, and then it's constant mediocrity with Mike Tice, Brad Childress. And I'm just wondering, when is it our time? You're probably thinking the same thing. It's been 30 years since Dallas's last NFC championship game appearance. Every other NFC team has made it in that span, but don't tell Jerry Jones that. Mr. I want to retire with the most Super Bowls.
God, he will not. I shared out a link or a reel on Instagram where it was Ric Flair doing the thing in 2007 and be like, I will never retire. That was what Jerry Jones just did right now. He is never going to leave. He will be a cyborg running the Dallas Cowboys in the year 3000. And they still
maybe he'll go on for a little bit longer. I think he's in his 80s now, if I'm not mistaken.
It's going to be like, it'll be Futurama. He's going to be the first person that puts his head in that cryogenic jar that they're able to just talk and like do their thing. And he and his head in a jar will be running the Dallas Cowboys. Just the disembodied voice of Jerry Jones running the Dallas Cowboys into oblivion, but into a ton of money somehow, some way.
He's got the money to do it too, so we probably shouldn't put it past Mr. Jones.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're already working on something like that right now.
I bet they are.
There's a great story because I've been to that stadium more times than I probably should. I've given Jerry Jones way too much of my money, but I went to the stadium and they did like a tour around the stadium. And there's this huge white marble wall. And it's like a 25-foot wall by like 500 feet long, beautiful marble wall. And they stop in front of it and they say, this marble came from the same quarry where Michelangelo sculpted the Pietà. And you're like, oh my God. That's
one of those Jerry Jones money stories.
Yeah.
There's a reason the Cowboys are as valuable as they are. He knows how to make money. He just can't replicate that success on the football field.
Well, the craziest part about this is they said Jerry Jones puts in the order and the quarry says, okay, we'll get it to you in about 2 years. And Jerry Jones says, no, like you need to move it to the front of the line. And they're like, well, we can't do that. He's like, well, what do I got to do to make sure you do that? And they're like, well, there's nothing you can do. So he bought the damn quarry. He bought it and was like, okay, so now I'm going to move my order to the front of the line because I'm a jerk. That's how much more money I have than the rest of you. It's insane, man.
My goodness.
What are you going to do with the quarry? I guess marble slabs and stuff, but I mean, come on now. You don't need a quarry to go along with your football team.
Well, and unfortunately for him, if he passes on the reins or whoever calls the shots for this team now, I bet it would kill him. And he wants to keep going on as long as he can.
Oh, 100%. 100%. We've spoken way too much about the Dallas Cowboys right now.
He's way too proud to give up control. We can see it.
Yeah. And that's going to be the downfall of the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, so looking forward to next season. I think we kind of spoke a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on, right? Like we spoke about the Pittsburgh Steelers, what their season might look like.
Yeah.
Vegas right now is giving us the odds that the Seahawks and the Rams are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. They are plus 950 favorites. If you go out there and gamble, make sure you're gambling responsibly. Plus 950 favorites. I feel like it's going to be difficult for either one of those teams just because of how tough that division is. And I feel like they can wind up cannibalizing one another.
And in the case of Seattle, it's always hard to return to the Super Bowl. And, the Rams fell just short. They could use that to their advantage this year. And Matthew Stafford's not getting any younger. He finally won his first MVP. That's still probably the most talented team in the NFL, maybe the best team, as you alluded to already. They just were outplayed in a fun game in the NFC title game. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams took back the division next year. It won't be easy, but they certainly have what it takes.
So let's look at the bottom feeders that are in the NFL. And I hate to say it that way, but that's what you are. You're not a good team. You're a bottom feeder in the NFL. You're just scraping around on the bottom of the ocean trying to find whatever algae you can eat. That's what you're doing as these teams here. Let's talk about the Raiders, the Jets, the Cardinals, the Titans, the New York Giants. Those are our top 5 draft picks right now. I think it's easy for us to say, out of those 5 teams, the New York Giants clearly have a leg up over everybody.
Oh, without a question. The best coach on the market, they snapped him up as fast as they could. Jackson Dart, he took some big steps this year, and the top 5 picks going to help him, with their talent on this team. They're still a little bit lower on the overall talent scale, but if they draft properly, I think they can challenge Philly this year with the proper coaching and the proper execution.
I think it's going to be difficult for them either way. Like, I still see them.
Well, maybe not right away, but in a couple of years.
I guess we got to see what they do in the draft, right?
Yeah.
Like, because I can see a scenario where the Dallas Cowboys once again just implode on themselves and they're not the second best team in the division. I still feel, and I guess we have to see what happens in free agency. We have to see what happens leading up to the draft. But this Philadelphia Eagles team, to me, is still the most talented team in the NFC East, at least the NFC East.
And it's their division until it's not anymore. Somebody has to take it from them.
Exactly. And you look at what the Giants have. They have a quarterback, Jackson Dart, much better than I thought he was going to be, much better than I think a lot of people thought he was going to be.
Yep, they got neighbors.
Cam Scattaboo, if he comes back along with Tyrone Tracy was a very serviceable running back for them. You mentioned Malik Neighbors. Wan'Dale Robinson came out of nowhere this year.
Yep.
They have, and Bellinger is a tight end. Like they have, again, the building blocks there. They have what I also think is the best defensive line in the NFC East by far. Like what they have on that defensive line with Lawrence and with Abdul Carter, it's a wild defensive line that they have. So I feel like they've got the building blocks to do something.
And it's they didn't get a lot of attention because of how poor they finished the season. But yeah, they were very good in the trenches at times this year.
So let's go to that second tier now. These are the top 10 going from 6 to 10. The Cleveland Browns, Washington Commanders, which should have been on our list again of teams that were super disappointing this year.
I agree. I don't know why we didn't talk about them.
The New Orleans Saints, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Cincinnati Bengals. Weird to say that the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes have a top 10 pick, but this is the world that we live in right now. Cleveland, Washington, New Orleans, Kansas City, Cincinnati. Which one of those 5 teams do you think has the best or the brightest future out of them?
Well, it's hard to discount the Chiefs. You know what they got in place with Mahomes. You know what they got in place with Andy Reid. And Cincinnati, they were held back all year long by the absence of Joe Burrow. So they would be my 2 teams to rebound. It's hard to see them not, rebounding after being so good in the AFC for the last few years. Washington's drop-off really surprised me, though.
Beginning of the season, I told everybody Washington was going to take a step back. They caught lightning in a bottle that first year with Dan Quinn. Again, it's not me hating on Dan Quinn. I thought Dan Quinn should have been the Dallas Cowboys head coach. Like I thought they should have fired Mike McCarthy the year before, let Dan Quinn take over. I feel like it would have been necessary for the Dallas Cowboys to do that, but that's a different topic for another day. The Washington Commanders, to me, I felt like they were super overachievers last year or the year before. They shouldn't have made it to the NFC Championship game. Detroit, once again, we're talking about how bad Detroit was. Detroit had, I believe, 5 turnovers in that game against the Washington Commanders.
That's right.
And lost by a single touchdown. I hate doing this because it feels like you're taking away from the Washington Commanders. I'm trying my best not to do this. Detroit lost that game to me more than Washington won that game. You know what I mean?
Without a doubt.
Like it's just one of those. So Washington caught lightning in a bottle, got it at the right time. We saw what happens whenever you play a good schedule. This is going to be the thing that the Patriots are going to have to overcome next year as well. Like you got fat off a 4th place schedule. Now you're going to have a tougher schedule next year. Let's see you make it back to the promised land. The Commanders had a nice, tough schedule that they had to go through. We saw them have a huge drop-off. I think the hardest thing for me is, yes, Jaden Daniels got hurt, but he didn't look good anyway. Like, even before the injury, he didn't look good.
No, and it's hard. It's such a cliche when you mention the term sophomore slump. But that's pretty much exactly what he went through. Like, and I'll amend my previous comment. I didn't expect them to drop off this badly. It's hard to replicate the success that you have like they did last year when, like you said, Detroit basically handed them that game last year in the playoffs. Everybody knew Philly was going to blow them out in the title game after that. And then Jaden Daniels, injury or not, he got a real taste of what the league can be like year in and year out. It's not always going to be the easiest thing.
So a team that I think is interesting out of those 5 teams, right? Like we've got, again, Cleveland, Washington, New Orleans, Kansas City, Cincinnati. I think we can both say Cincinnati, Kansas City, not teams that you would think belong in this area. They're going to bounce back. They're going to get better next season.
Safer bet than not.
The team that's interesting to me here is New Orleans, because we saw how good that team could have been had they started Tyler Shugg earlier.
They had a tremendous end of the year. I was actually surprised at how well they gelled at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's something that they can build off of. Shell played well, and he might even be maybe I should call it now a sleeper pick on some people's fantasy teams next year.
I'm going to be very interested to see what his average draft position is, because the way he ended this season, he's going to just skyrocket.
And whenever we used to talk about the Saints, we would talk about just rolling offenses. The last few years, it hasn't been the case. It won't be Drew Brees offense like next year, but I think we'll see an improved team.
But again, I mean, they have a nice high draft pick, right? Like you have some building blocks there. Like Olave, I don't think you can rely on him as your number one guy. I would have liked to have seen them not trade Shaheed. Yeah, it was Shaheed that they traded to Seattle, right at the middle part of the season around the trade.
Yeah, but what an impact he made in these playoffs.
Like, imagine what he could have done for the future of New Orleans. So maybe, they got rid of him a little too early. But, of course, you get, capital and stuff like that you can get out of him. But I feel like they're going to be an interesting team to watch next year. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but they're going to be a team that you cannot take lightly. Yeah,
they'll surprise some people. The NFC South was not a good division this year, and that's why New Orleans was as close to the top as they were. I think Tampa Bay will be a much better team next year, for instance. I think they'll reign again as long as they play better offense.
No love for the Cleveland Browns, who had 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks on their roster, along with a 2-time Coach of the Year that they fired this year. No love.
I wonder if Sanders got that vote on his family name. That's something else.
I mean, well, the fact that it was Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders making it as Pro Bowlers this year is insane. Like, the Cleveland Browns were that bad, yet somehow had 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks on their roster. Again, I don't think Pro Bowl means what it used to back in the day.
It does not even close.
But
everybody, Cleveland was more known this year for defense, so they should have been giving a lot more love to a guy like Myles Garrett, who now has the sack record.
There has to be a conversation about Cleveland trading Myles Garrett now, right? Like, they're so far away from being a team that's worth a damn that they can trade Myles Garrett right now and try to capitalize on as much draft capital out there.
That's certainly a possibility. I don't see them doing it because he's one of those guys who will put asses in the seats. One of the few, as a matter of fact.
Oh, you don't think Shedeur will?
Unless he gets better. How he got a Pro Bowl not, I have no idea.
They're just giving out Pro Bowls to everybody. We should have played this year. We could have gotten a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I'd have done better.
Anderson,
do we want to look at the middle of the draft order now?
What was that?
Would we want to look at the middle of the draft now? We got Miami and your Cowboys leading off the top 11 there.
I was hoping that we'd be able to end the show without having to talk about the Cowboys, but let's do it. Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys, the LA Rams getting this draft pick from a trade with the Atlanta Falcons, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You look at all 5 of these teams, and you can say, had the ball bounced a little differently, this would have been a playoff team. In the case of the Rams, this could have been a Super Bowl winning team if the ball bounces a little differently, right? These teams are in that weird place of they're really good, but they're not really bad. Like, they're in that weird area. Out of those 5 teams, who do you think is the most interesting going into next year?
Well, obviously you were right about the Rams. They were literally a few bounces away from the Super Bowl this year.
Okay, you know what? Caveat here. Let's take the Rams out of the conversation.
Okay. The Ravens, I think the Ravens are going to be interesting because now they have a new head coach. We don't know what we're going to expect now. I think Lamar Jackson will be as good as he always is, but every team that takes on a new head coach, you really don't know what to expect the first year, even if they're as good as anybody talent-wise.
Andrew asking about the Cleveland Browns, who will be their coach, would not touch that Cleveland job with a 10-foot pole. That's also the thing. Like anyone, like you're getting approached by the Cleveland Browns as coaches. We've heard this story, and they're being like, I kind of like where I am right now. I don't want to go over to you guys. Like that's a different type of hell that I don't think I'm ready for.
You can count the number of playoff appearances they've had over the last 25 years on one hand alone, and all you would need is two damn fingers.
It's wild.
They made it as a wild card in 2002 under Butch Davis, a name many people have forgotten by now.
With Tim Crouch as their quarterback.
Huh?
With Tim Crouch as their quarterback.
Tim Couch and Kelly Holcomb.
Oh, yeah.
They had William Green in backfield and Andre Davis at wideout. But then they make it again, what was it, 2020 was it when they made it as the runner-up behind the Steelers?
Oh, man. I thought at one point they made it to the playoffs with Derek Anderson as the quarterback. Like Derek Anderson, Brady Quinn, that team. But you're right.
You might be thinking of the 07 season. They were very close that year. They tied with Pittsburgh on top of the division that year, but they got swept by them, so that's why they didn't make it in. But they were very close. That's one of those rare 10-win seasons that doesn't, not yet a playoff spot.
But that's also, like, you're right. It was that Baker Mayfield team that went toe-to-toe with Kansas City. Matt Castle had to have the ball where he ran for a yard that wound up, solidifying the win there for the Kansas City Chiefs. They were a win away from making it to the AFC Championship game.
Yep, they were. But those are the only two playoff appearances they've had in the last 25 years alone. Neither of them division titles. So you're wondering about the success of that team. No wonder our fan there is like, I wouldn't touch that job with a 10-foot pole. But we've just explained why that is.
Yeah, we just saw it. They are. I don't believe in curses. This is a team that is cursed, just flat out. Like there's something wrong in Cleveland right there. Miami, Dallas, Baltimore, Tampa Bay. Those are the four that we have left. We're excluding the Los Angeles Rams. To me, it's Tampa Bay, dude. That was a team that was riddled with injuries all year long. Baker Mayfield, to me, is one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the NFL. If you are down in the fourth quarter and Baker Mayfield's your quarterback, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. He's one of those comeback king kind of guys. Imagine what this team could have been if Mike Evans had been healthy all year, if Godwin had been healthy all year. They did this with basically just Emeka Egbuka. Like that's all it was, Emeka Egbuka. Like that's all it was that they were throwing the ball to, and no offensive line. If they can address the offensive line in this draft and maybe in free agency, that could be an interesting team to watch again.
Yeah, and Bucky Irving was another one of those guys that got hurt.
Yeah.
He was one of my fantasy players this year. I never lost faith in him despite his extended injury time this year. How much time do we got? Do we want to kind of run down the last half all in one, or what do we want to do here?
I'll tell you what, we will hit the rest of this next episode. Give us a little something to talk about. So
and maybe we'll have a few more people to weigh in too with us.
Yes, we will. Maybe we'll have to recap with them what we spoke about.
That's right. We should
on this show right now.
We should, okay, yes.
Sean, what are your final thoughts? Whether you want to talk, we're putting the 2025 season to bed here. What are your final thoughts on this season?
Well, I'm really happy for Sam Darnold. Obviously it hurts more seeing him go because ex-Vikings tend to have success when they go elsewhere. I'm not at all annoyed by the success of Sam Darnold, and if anything, I'm happy for him. We talked about New England briefly. They overachieved. It's going to be interesting to see how they rebound from a game where they were just dominated. Will we see them in the Super Bowl again? I don't know. First things first, they need better protection for one thing, and they need to finish drives in red zone better. As far as the rest of the league goes, it's going to be unpredictable. I don't really know who's going to be the contender next year. Seattle and the Rams are probably the safest bets, seeing as they have the highest odds. But after them, it might be kind of anybody's guess.
Andrew letting us know that the Bears are back, baby. The monsters of the Midway.
They will be an interesting team to follow for sure.
So to me, I think my final thoughts on this season was it was awesome to see new teams having a shot, right? Like, sure, disappointed by Kansas City, disappointed by Philadelphia, but to be able to see new teams get out here, make their own name for themselves. Will they be back next year? Who knows? But it was awesome to see these teams that I don't think anybody thought was going to be good have, a season to remember this year. All right,
well,
everybody.
that's part of what makes football so much fun.
Oh yeah. No, that was the most fun about it. Sean, yep. I appreciate your time, my guy. Everybody, we appreciate you for tuning in. We will be back next Tuesday, maybe with more people. Maybe it's just me and Sean from now on. We don't know. It's a crap.
Maybe it is.
We'll just see how it goes. Otherwise, but you know what? I had fun, Sean. I hope you had fun, and of course, all out there watching online. I hope you all had fun as well. We'll see you all next week.
See you guys.